So much is being said about the Epstein victims and how courageous they are to come forward. I don't think enough is being said. I don't think people understand what it takes to speak out and speak about that kind of experience as a young woman. The next piece you're about to see is my thinking and my observations about the challenges victims face. Psychologists, educators, coaches, consultants all see the reluctance of people to even talk about the unpleasant and painful experiences victims have when they are subjected to the judgments of society. So I look forward to hearing your comments and your responses about your thoughts about these courageous women.
You are watching Profunda TV with host Phyllis Haynes.
If you watch Game of Thrones, you remember Cersei's walk of shame as she is pelted by debris and feces while being forced to walk naked for her sins. This scene captured what so many women feel inside when they are the victims of assault. George R. Martin describing his scene in the Game of Thrones. You have nothing more to hide. You bear all before God. This scene echoes how women have been shamed throughout time, stripped, burned, and branded. Why women who experience sexual assault often feel shame. Shame is one of the most common and devastating emotional responses to sexual assault. Although the person assaulted is never at fault, many survivors find themselves carrying a heavy burden of self-blame and secrecy. This is, deeply rooted in cultural and ancient practices that were based on the notion that women were less than men, property of men, and needed to be blamed even if they were the victims. Somehow they were to be blamed if men behaved poorly. Survivors often say they feel exposed, vulnerable, and powerless. In many societies, including when I grew up in the 50s and 60s, women were taught that their worth was tied to sexual purity, modesty, or respectability. Even in the works of best-selling author E. L. James, the author of 50 Shades of Grey, her leading man, Christian Grey, falls deeply in love with a young woman primarily because she is beautiful and has never been touched by another man. This notion of James also appears in her more recent works, The Mister and its sequel, The Mrs., where the female lead character is pure and has not been tainted by sexual experience. Even though she was captured by sex traffickers, she managed to get away and remain untouched. She wins the heart of an extremely rich British earl who falls for her reveling in her inexperience with sex. The social reaction to assault deepens this burden. Survivors are frequently met with questions like, "What were you wearing?" or "Why didn't you fight back?" These responses reflect a culture of victim blaming that shifts responsibility away from the assailant. Over time, many internalize this blame. Shame and Adult Sexual Assault, a study with a group of female survivors, Maria Elena Vidal, chartered clinical psychologist, and Jenny Petrak, consultant clinical psychologist. Psychologically, shame is particularly corrosive because it differs from guilt. While guilt says, "I did something bad," shame says, "I am bad." Psychologists June Tangney and Rhonda Deering emphasize that shame attacks the self rather than the behavior. For survivors of sexual assault, the trauma can feel like an imprint that defines them, making it really difficult to separate identity from the violence inflicted upon them. Author Brené Brown talks about shame as the intensely painful feeling of being unworthy of love and belonging. So when news reporters and commentators talk about how brave the Epstein victims are, you realize that it is truly an enormous feat that they are coming forward publicly to share their experiences and, demand full release of documents. Although they were below the age of consent when they were abused, they may experience the judgments from our society that linger today. Why didn't you say no? Why did you go there in the first place? And the worst belief that sometimes sounds like the days of the Salem witchcraft period. You must have flirted and beguiled the men.
We look now at a completely different topic, and that is dealing with chaos. I think the point of the shame piece is that we need to catch ourselves when we're judging. Now we need to stay alert for all the change that's going on in society. This too is an AI generated piece, and I hope you enjoy it.
You are watching Profunda TV with host Phyllis Haynes.
It's really tough out there. Have you ever tried to get a person on the phone when you have a problem with an organization, an institution, a purchase, or a utility bill? Getting a person on the phone is increasingly difficult. There are all kinds of technological changes. Changes in the way we pay at the toll booths when we're driving, the way we get on the train or get on the bus, the way we interact with our doctors. Every doctor has a portal, or every test has a portal for your results. All kinds of things have changed in our day-to-day lives. People are still using the word dial in some cases, but nothing is being dialed. Some things are audio-driven or video-driven. Change is upon us, and how we act and react to that change is going to determine the quality of our lives. Identity is up for grabs.
You are watching Profunda TV with host Phyllis Haynes.
Thanks so much for joining me. This program is devoted to looking at the things that are frustrating us all, not just the things that divide us, but some of the things that really we all are experiencing in this extraordinary technological shift. I like to credit David Houle, an incredible writer and thinker, with the idea of talking about the shift. But in fact, I think it's now everyone's experience that technology is changing so rapidly. We're all having to catch up and rethink our day to day lives. And I also believe that if we face this together, we may find common ground. I know that there are huge political divides on very serious issues, but I'm interested in looking at those things which we can address together, that we share. So, in this program, I've used some artificial intelligence to talk about some of those differences. And AI is affecting all of our lives. And it's useful to see what it is and how it works so that we can begin to discuss fake information, fake images, and begin to distinguish that a lot's going to be coming at us that is not real, that is easily generated. So this software actually uses my voice, doesn't totally sound like me. So that's why I'm talking now so that you can compare. But it was also great to see that it could generate a full discussion with video and in a much quicker fashion than would normally have taken me in a traditional television news production.
Your book has such an intriguing title. What inspired you to write it?
That's a great question. I think we have all noticed there's been an increasing amount of chaos in the world. I see it in my day-to-day life. I'm noticing it in my friends' lives too. I'm also aware that there is an ongoing technological avalanche of new information that has fallen on people who haven't got a clue. For example, when's the last time you've actually been able to get a person on the phone? If you're calling about some issue with your utility bill or something you've purchased, it takes a great effort to reach a person, and sometimes you never get a person. So that's what.
Can you share a bit about your personal journey and how it shaped this book?
I've had a privileged career. I started in broadcast television while I was still in the university at NYU. I got to work at night at WPIX TV, and so I was in television. In the days when everything was shot on film, we had to rush back to the studio to get the film in the soup, meaning develop it so it could be ready for broadcast. Film editing in those days meant physically cutting or splicing film. This was done by union guys who were brilliant. Many came from movie careers into news broadcasting, and so I worked with them in the cutting room to tell a story. I have seen the transition from the physical handling of film to the evolution of video and digital editing to now the generation of AI. This is an AI-generated piece. So I have found my life to be enhanced and also challenged by having to learn new technology that rapidly becomes obsolete. When I was teaching at Emerson College in Boston, there was still 3/4-inch video that was moving into VHS. Now Emerson students learn new and sophisticated media production technologies. People are shooting incredible movies using their phones. News events are being enhanced by the fact that people had their cell phones to take a picture or record a video. The news outlets rely sometimes on citizen recordings to tell an actual story or to get various vantage points. This is a major change. Not everything is contingent on the crew arriving at the spot of an event. So, this is a time of transition that I've had the privilege of witnessing, and I suspect, even in the recording of this interview, that there's more change coming, and it has to do with the rapid growth of AI. No one really knows for sure what the next version is going to be.
Who is this book for, and what do you hope readers take away from it?
It's very exciting, and it's also terrifying. It's also complicated for so many people who haven't welcomed the transition to new technologies. I mean, who the heck wants to talk to a chatbot when they're calling about a problem? But anyway, my life has encompassed both of those challenges, the good parts and the bad parts of this technological advancement. This book is written for anyone who wants to live a calm and peaceful existence in the midst of all of this change. I wrote this book for all those who feel lost, worried, and unsure in this rapidly changing environment. People talked about information bombardment years and years ago. This is not a new idea. It's an extraordinary amount of information coming at us much more rapidly. You can't get away from advertising. It's constant. Wherever you have a digital output or input, there is information. Advertisers and marketers are looking for new locations to capture us. I think the next time you visit a public toilet, the water will have a new ad every time the toilet flushes. I know that sounds a little funny, but there are already sculptures based on water flow. So I suspect that advertising will find that location too. Anyway, I digress. As you can tell, I am fascinated by the possibilities of technological advancement, but this book is for anyone trying to navigate that.
You talk about dancing in the chaos. What does that mean, practically, for someone going through a tough time?
I use the metaphor of dancing in the chaos, improvisational dancing that lets you feel the music and move in whatever way it comes through you. And that's what I mean about dancing in the chaos. Allow yourself to float and listen to your own rhythm as you move through the music. You'll be able to avoid the pull of false narratives and confusing voices when you learn to dance and feel your own rhythm coming through your body, understanding what is you, what are your own boundaries, and subsequently, the preservation of self occurs when you, in fact, can feel your own rhythm. When I say feel your own rhythm, for some people that might be an audio rhythm or a pulsing light. It might be a tactile experience like walking across a pebbled stream. It is not all the same for everyone, but finding your unique rhythm is key to preserving your unique self and knowing that you can't preserve fundamentally what you don't know. I guess it's correct from the Greeks. Know thyself. So, there's a lot in this book that will help you absolutely embrace who you are, and you will be very clear about who you are not.
Do you have a personal story from your own life that exemplifies the message of this book?
I tell a story in the book. It's a very sad story. I was walking down the street with a very wealthy family, and the older son passed a beggar on the street. The man asked for help. My friend's son stopped and went over to the homeless man and handed him something. As we walked away as a group, I heard the homeless man cry out in a horrible, sad sound. He just cried out. And we asked the young man who had stopped for him, "What did you give him?" And the young man was very, very proud of the fact that he had given him some unusable foreign currency. And he thought that was funny. He thought that was a great joke. Quite honestly, I was horrified by this, and so was this young man's mother, but everyone was torn as to what to say to him. No one told him to go back and correct the situation. It was not my place, since I was not his mother. What an awful thing. And it gave me an immediate understanding of my own values. I wanted to understand how such a young man could come to that kind of thinking, that he could do such a cruel thing to someone else. So, the book is about helping you see yourself, not only in what's good and what's possible, but what's wrong with our world that we need to change, that we need to shift.
What advice would you give to someone who feels completely overwhelmed and doesn't know where to start?
Before you start navigating, the one thing that has to be intact is your sense of yourself. I mean, who are you? You are a compilation of information. You are a compilation of everything that's been input and output from you. And so, if we're not careful, we may lose ourselves in the midst of this technological challenge. So, this book, How to Dance in the Chaos, is to help you find grounding on who you are and what you want, so that when caught in overwhelming confusion, you don't lose yourself and you have the strength to get through it.
Have you heard any powerful feedback from early readers?
I appreciate all the feedback I've gotten so far that my book is user-friendly. It's a small book. It's not going to take a lot of time. In fact, the best way to use it is to open to the pages that you are attracted to and that reflect your needs. And that's a good approach for almost everything. Take the parts that work for you and leave the rest. And that's my suggestion. And thank you for the
If there's one message you hope stays with readers long after they finish the book, what would it be?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions in our world is our fix-it mentality. We see a problem and we want to react immediately. You know, I think learning to observe in a calm manner is more powerful than a quick, thoughtless reaction. Our primeval response of fight or flight may at times be useful in the face of danger. This behavior stems from times we might have had to escape from a wild animal. It's a useful mechanism, but reaction actually is less useful when you don't know who you are and you haven't taken time to figure that out. So the action is very poor when not in alignment with a sense of self.
Now that you've taken a look at this AI-generated story that I've written with the help of AI, I'd like very much for you to know that there are parts of this program still devoted to serious conversation, and I'm going to play for you some of the archives, some of the pieces that have meant a great deal to me over the years. So there are lots of great people to listen to, and I invite you to stay with me as we continue to look at some of the past participants on Profunda TV.
Get beyond the confusion and hype of artificial intelligence. 24 writers from around the world in different fields address the facts and concerns about AI in an easy-to-read book entitled Intelligence, Artificial versus Human, published by Dancing Elephants Press. These writers have put their concerns and observations about the impact of AI into this thoughtful and important new book. This is a level-headed, non-polarized presentation of AI technology, potential benefits to society, and the potential pitfalls. The editors of this book are Dr. Gabriella Carosi, Marianne Pellin, and D.R. Rawson.
This is exactly what we need to understand the subject. As I said, if you look at AI, you can go from here to here, but somewhere in there is what we're really talking about, because down here, it's absolutely important. It's critical, in fact, to everyday life. When you get out here, maybe less so. Maybe we're not ready for droids. Maybe we're not ready for people that, or for droids that would automatically make decisions for us. We're not ready for that. But in between is all the creativity, and that's where HI comes in.
I have a principle that I include in everything that I do in my work, which is use of time through use of ability. And it seems to me that the really important thing is to find out, have methodology, to find out what an individual's abilities are. And in using those abilities, in other words, I'm agreeing with you, I simply turn it inside and say, if you have capabilities to be a scientist, and whatever that actually entails, enabling you to be that scientist is going to be the fulfillment of your purpose, your being, and the application of that ability to whatever subject matter you choose is going to be the benefit to all of us each and every time. And I think that's probably true in the way that we do our work and live our lives.